Everyone, welcome to the first County Board Workshop of 2021. This is our first workshop and our first time doing a webinar, so we welcome all of those that are watching us here online. This is typical of a workshop that the Ramsey County does, where we hear information from a department that we have, and we welcome members of the public to listen in on the workshops. If you have comments, you can let each of us specifically know your questions afterwards, but there won't be an interactive Q&A with the public at this workshop. But Public Health Department is here today to present recommendations for a redesign of our county's household hazardous waste system, and then to get the board's preferences with regard to that system. I'm super excited about this. This is something that we all care about, is our household hazardous waste, and so we're really grateful for pulling this together. Just a reminder for those of us listening that household hazardous waste are chemicals that pose a health or environmental risk and that are found in our homes. They're items sold in grocery and hardware stores, auto parts stores, or can be purchased online. Most of us use them every day. So they're very common, useful, important, but when they're not used, these chemicals get discarded, and putting them in the trash is not healthy for our environment or our homes. So counties are required by the state of Minnesota to have a program to collect household hazardous waste. So Ramsey County has had a program in place for these chemicals since 1991. Through extensive outreach and promotion, as well as collection programs, we've done okay. But the county's approach to the program has changed a little over the past 30 years, and some residents are left behind, and there are still a lot of chemicals that go into the trash. So the Public Health Department has completed a review of this program and is going to be reporting on recommendations of moving forward into the future. So I'm not surprised. We have an amazing department that you're thinking forward and what we can do better. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy County Manager, Kathy Hedin, who I know will then turn it over to Zach Hansen. So welcome, Deputy County Manager Hedin.
Madam Chair, good morning. Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
I can hear you.
Thank you for your time today, commissioners. We've been looking forward to this non-COVID related workshop for some time. I know Environmental Health Director Zach Hansen is looking forward to sharing information with you today too. The Environmental Health Division within Public Health has completed an analysis of the county's household hazardous waste program. We've completed a report and are here today to provide you with those details and to present recommendations to you, the board. The plan that has been prepared for today is a bold plan that reaches broadly across and deep into the community. The plan goes beyond managing environmental risks and is designed to address racial equity, environmental justice, and economic opportunity. The redesign has a capital and operating budget, but it is affordable, has the means to pay for it, and requires no increase in revenue, which is important. It is projected to increase the number of residents served by over 70%, the volume of household hazardous waste by over 180%, and will reduce the cost per resident by 23%. And actually, can somebody, Sia, if you're moving the slide, could you go to the next slide, please? Or if it's Zach, I'm not sure who.
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Thank you. We're here early. As you'll hear, the contract for the vendor providing the current service has 2 years remaining. We are looking to the board, all of you, for direction now so that there's time for us to put a redesigned system in place if that's your preference. The analysis stems from 2 strategies in the solid waste master plan, the solid waste management master plan, which I know you're all familiar with, which is the county's guiding document for its work in this area and has been prepared at this time because the county's 10-year agreement with Bay West for household hazardous waste services ends on December 31st of 2022. Providing recommendations now provides us ample time to develop and ensure appropriate rollout of any service changes. So today we will explain the gaps in the service delivery that surfaced and explain redesign recommendations that will ensure better service to our county residents. In presenting this today, we would like to get your preferences for the department's proposed redesign, which would lead to the next steps in providing the services. And before we begin, I want to highlight two things. First, the redesign that we are proposing is in response to our work and community to hear what residents expect from this service and meet them where they are at. And secondly, you'll hear how the existing system focuses on important environmental goals and the redesign purposes increased efforts toward environmental protection. Importantly, the proposed redesign specifically addresses racial equity and environmental justice and also reduces economic disparities and increases job opportunities. We do believe that this approach is more equitable than our approach has been in the past. Before I go to any further, I want to turn it over to Zach Hansen, our Environmental Health Division Director, to go through the rest of this presentation.
Thank you, Kathy, and good morning, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here today. Before we get started on the redesign proposal, I wanted to just review quickly what household hazardous waste is. Commissioner McGuire mentioned household chemicals. It's those things in our households that if we were a business would be regulated, but because they're coming from households, they're not regulated. And the components meet these technical terms, but basically if a product has the terms like caution, warning, danger, or poison on the label, that's a good sign that it's household hazardous waste. Our programs also collect other materials, batteries, sharps, we collect medications, and other items like that. As mentioned in the introduction, we're proposing a redesign that would start in 2023 after our current contract with Bay West expires. Now, the current system to manage household hazardous waste has been somewhat effective, but it could perform better. We're going to explain the proposed system redesign today, the analysis we did comparing to the status quo, and looking at how we can make investments in a system that go beyond an environmental focus, but also address equity and economic benefits. Now, the current household hazardous waste collection service has been the same for at least 20 years. Since actually it goes back further for when the program first began, but Bay West has been the service provider since year 2000. They own and operate the household hazardous waste facility on Empire Drive, and then they provide mobile collection or satellite sites on about 70 days between April and October each year, generally on weekends. The way it works, county residents self-haul or bring those materials to the household hazardous waste facilities or mobile sites where they're dropped off. The current program was designed back in the 1990s to focus on risk. It was based on risk analysis that was performed by consultants that looked at these four categories of risk, and they identified that there could be benefits to mitigating those risks if we were able to achieve 20% of the households in the county participating annually. Now, that focus on risk management has been the touchstone as program decisions have been made over that period of time. So environmental, property, health and safety, and financial risks. And the health and safety extends beyond exposure in the households to exposures to waste industry workers, and the property risks in the same manner. And that's become important to us in Ramsey County as we are a joint partner with Washington County in owning the processing facility down in Newport. This slide, while complicated, illustrates the current components of the household hazardous waste system. There's both public and private components and participants in this system. County related items are towards the top, where we carry out most of the outreach and engagement in a wide variety of ways in a number of different media. County services provided are the collection sites I mentioned. We have a reuse room where people can get materials that are in good condition at no cost. We have reciprocal use agreements, which are agreements with the other metropolitan counties where a resident can go to another county and use their household hazardous waste facility and vice versa. We then, at the end of the year, reconcile costs with the other counties. We have collection sites for old medications. We provide a service to small businesses, and we also collect sharps at the household hazardous waste facilities. Retail and nonprofit collections are the principal way electronic waste is collected. And then other items such as paint or batteries, used oil, and other items are collected by the private sector. So that's the full system, with the county being an important participant. This is a graph of the participation, the number of participants per year since the program started. And you can see there was a period of growth until about the past 10 years. And starting in 2009, we've seen a leveling off of participation. And despite growing efforts to reach out to people through community engagement, participation, or outreach, we've seen that leveling off. From the survey work we've done, we know that 51% of the residents report that they have used household hazardous waste services at some time. 23% say they use it annually, but that means there's 49% that say they have never used it. And then compared to other metro counties, we've looked at their costs and their participation, and we found that Ramsey is the most expensive on a per participant basis, but it serves fewer households. So we rank 4th in total spending and participation and 7th in cost per participant. And if you remember, I talked about that risk mitigation number of 20% of households. Ramsey County has, in the last few years, consistently been around 12 to 13% participation. So we've been falling short of that level where we can see more benefits in those 4 risk categories. We began in 2019 engaging community on the subject of household hazardous waste services. Continued that into the early part of 2020. We used several different methods that are outlined in the report: online survey, listening sessions, and then referring to the biennial survey of residents that the department's conducted since the 1980s. We looked at 4 different categories of subjects. I'm going to go back to that slide. We asked people about their awareness of this household hazardous waste system, their communications, what they would prefer to see, information about locations and preferences for how they would like to dispose of household hazardous waste, and then other information they wanted to use. So with those engagement methods, the report has the details, but overall the community engagement confirmed residents' desire for a more comprehensive and easily accessible system. We also confirmed that there are a lot of residents that are underserved right now, particularly people of color, elderly residents, and those without transportation. And that makes up a chunk of that 49% that I described from our survey work. We found for a number of residents, the current service is frustrating, it's inconvenient, and that we could do a better job of reaching more deeply into the community to create more awareness. There are a lot of suggestions we receive from residents, and they're summarized here. One of the ones we heard most often is that they would like a better way to be able to recycle electronics. For household hazardous waste and electronics, they're looking for convenient options that are low cost or free. There were suggestions for curbside pickup of some materials or a drop-off site with more hours. There was, from folks that lived in multi-unit housing, recommendations to have collection events at apartment buildings. Suggestions that we provide pickup services, accessible, convenient, and affordable. And an important one from our product stewardship policy, businesses should take these things back and alert customers that they're purchasing that it is a hazardous waste. The redesign that we developed for today's discussion was based on the current system, but then was informed by the community engagement, and we let the community basically design these other elements. And it has these priorities: continue to reduce risk. It's important that in those 4 categories of risk that we seek to increase use of the system and the types and volumes of household hazardous waste so we can address those concerns that we focused on in the past. But also building on the current system to address equity, an important county priority, and so that household hazardous waste services be designed based on the community's preferences to assure that we find the risks or manage the risks and provide the benefits to all people in Ramsey County. And from an economic perspective, how can we use this investment in managing these materials? How can we figure out ways to provide community opportunity to folks, whether it's through job training or jobs themselves? So in filling the gaps, there are 4 components that we're suggesting work together to address household hazardous waste and meet these county priorities. And those include a year-round county-owned household hazardous waste site, which we call an environmental service center, a permanent year-round satellite site, what we're calling house side, not curbside, but house side collection, and also working with multi-units for collection, and then some system changes for electronic waste. And I'll be describing each of these separately and then coming back to the analysis that we worked on. Environmental Service Center, as we're proposing it, is the foundation for the redesign. It would be county owned, it could be new construction or renovation. It would continue the same services for small businesses and residents. These are some ideal data for sizing and so on that we put forward. And there's some photographs here of other facilities in Minnesota that counties own and operate. I think it's important that the distinction from our system in the past, we've always contracted we've had 2 different vendors work with us since the 1990s, and we required them to provide the facility. So Bay West owns and operates the facility now. So when we want to make program changes, we need to work with Bay West and make changes to the contracts and so on. County-owned facility provides flexibility to make more rapid decisions, but appropriately sized also allows you to take other materials or provide additional services. So, for example, besides taking household hazardous waste, if sized appropriately, you could take recyclable materials. If we develop a mattress recycling program, you could collect mattresses or bulky items there. Could have sales of backyard compost bins, rain barrels, and so on at a facility such as this. The second component is a permanent satellite site that would replace those mobile sites that we currently have. What this does is it actually increases the number of hours per year that's available. We heard from the community that they would like to have more collection hours consistently throughout the year. And as we've designed this element of the program, it's a smaller facility that would have drive-through or walk-up service, geographically would complement the Environmental Service Center. And in replacing the mobile collection sites, while we give up geographic convenience, we've gained significantly in the number of the number of hours that service would be available. The house side collection, we believe, is an innovative approach to reach households that don't have access to a drive-through facility. It's the same items that would be collected in an environmental service center or a drop-off site. Labor and equipment would be this flexible to be used between the same. This was based on experiences we've seen in other parts of North America. Up in Ontario, Toronto and Sudbury have vehicles that serve about 600 households a month called their toxic taxi, where they go out and collect it. San Francisco, area in Colorado near Denver, Des Moines, Iowa, another community in Illinois that we interviewed and learned about their system and designed it based on what designed ours based on what we learned from talking with them. Eligibility would probably start off with some criteria for who would be eligible, and it could grow to be a service for everyone as experience is gained and we learn more about it. Residents would be provided a bin, would put their materials in a bin, which would be collected on a specific day with appointments being made. And we can talk about how that would work in detail if you want more information later this morning. The fourth component, we talked about changes to the electronic waste or e-waste system. We do need to see an increase in e-waste recovery for recycling. It is, as you all know, one of the fastest growing waste streams. Full cost in our product stewardship system in the state is not being paid by manufacturers. And that's counter to the intent of the state. Efforts by the Pollution Control Agency, the Metropolitan Counties, Association of Counties have met with stiff resistance from the industry. And while we continue to try, there are full costs, or there are costs that are not being fully recovered. The e-waste law hasn't worked well for Ramsey County residents because of the costs associated, whether they go to retailers such as Best Buy or Staples or others, if they go to a city collection event where the charges are there, or if they go to different counties' household hazardous waste site for e-waste disposal. E-waste that's not recycled is either stored in a household, and I'm guilty of that, or it's placed in the trash, sometimes illegally dumped. We did a waste, many of you that are on the R&E board know that there was a waste sort study back in 2014 as we were moving ahead with proposed changes. And we found that electronics disposed of in the trash at that time were about 4.4 million pounds per year from Ramsey County. A certain share was from Washington County in terms of the study, but that's a significant amount of material. One of the things of concern from that property damage and occupational health risk category is the increased use of lithium-ion batteries, which they can cause fires in certain conditions. And we have seen waste facilities, actually a transfer station in Blaine burned down a couple of years ago. We've had small fires at the R&E center associated with lithium-ion batteries, as has Hennepin County and other public and private transfer stations. So collecting the batteries and the devices they have is becoming increasingly important. So the redesign piece is that if the county is more involved and we do it through partnerships, we can address these, this issue of collecting and recycling more e-waste. So the current system stays as it is. We're proposing collection of e-waste at the county-sponsored Environmental Service Center and the satellite site and the house site program at no charge to residents. But then contracts with selected private providers to create a broader collection network that also reduces barriers to participation. Out of the report, and in the report is this slide, and it is very complicated, and I'm violating several PowerPoint guidelines here in presenting something like this. But the area in red is what we're proposing to add to the system, and that's contracts with private providers that would be able to refurbish and either sell or give residents or businesses working devices and add units to, for example, the tech packs that Workforce Solutions has used as part of the response during the economic downturn associated with the pandemic. So the
Zach,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do have a question from Commissioner Mattis Castillo, and I will take questions, you know, that are specific to the slides that we're on, and then we can do general questions at the end. But I see that Commissioner Mattis Castillo has her hand raised, so I'm assuming it's on one of these slides that we've just seen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and not to interrupt your flow, Zach. I'm just wondering about in this area of e-waste, because I agree it's a huge issue, and we see in our neighborhoods that people just put their electronics on the curbs, hoping someone else will come by and get them. And so having an opportunity to be able to recycle them appropriately is, I think, a huge benefit. But you mentioned some legislation that has not been helpful, and I'm not remembering seeing any of that on our legislative platform. Is there an area that we need to be looking at the legislature this year or in years that we can be aware of? Or could you follow up with us to get us just a little more information? It doesn't have to be right now, so that we're kind of keeping an eye out what works there around e-waste and where it can be improved. And then my other question is, and I love your proposal of how we get this e-waste, kind of picked up and services for our community. The other place I see that people just drop off electronics is on the loading docks of our thrift stores, Goodwills, and My Values across the city. And I'm wondering if we can do a direct partnership with those nonprofits and businesses that I'm sure would be grateful for us to provide that, a receptacle or whatever. So thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Mattis Castillo. I think Commissioner Reinhardt's probably in a position to discuss the legislation in depth, but there was a law passed a number of years ago that places responsibility on manufacturers, and it has been a platform item for many years, and it continues to be, and currently for the Partnership on Waste and Energy. But I think Commissioner Reinhardt has been through a lot of those battles at the legislature with the electronics industry.
Yeah,
Yes.
Commissioner Reinhardt, and then I know County Manager O'Connor has some comments as well.
Yes, we actually were there were e-waste pieces of legislation that were passed in other parts of the country, but ours was it was the most comprehensive at the time. In fact, I appeared before the committee of the New York City Council, which is quite an experience, by the way, to talk about our e-waste legislation. And this is a really complex issue, as we know in a lot of things that seem pretty straightforward. It's really complex, especially when you're talking about extended producer responsibility, which is what this is. That we want to make sure that it's not just let me back up a little bit here. Some of the previous legislation in other states really just put a penalty on manufacturers. So if you didn't do it, you paid a fine, $5,000, maybe even more than that. But it really wasn't guaranteeing that anything got recycled. It was just saying that they had to pick it up or they had to pay a fine. Which of course was not very effective. So our legislation not only said it was the manufacturer's responsibility to pay, but that we actually had to make sure that it was being recycled. What we put into place was pretty groundbreaking at the time. However, we put in credits that could be carried over. We did a number of things to try and make sure that we would have things covered, but it fell short of what we needed to do. It seemed very clear that pretty quickly the manufacturers had credits going into the future that they didn't really need to do anything more. Now, I'm making it sound very simple when it is not, but the reality is we have continued to have a legislative platform through the Partnership on Waste and Energy, through the Recycling and Energy Board, and before that through the Solid Waste Management Coordinating Board. So it came up as a support item because it wasn't Ramsey County only, which is why you probably wouldn't have seen it as something that was targeted by us, but it is a very important part of our system. So I hope that that helps a little bit. We want to make sure that we've got something in place that the manufacturers truly are paying. And I know that we've worked with the PCA on that legislation. So where we're at right now, That I will turn it back over to Zach, and I think he's actually covered it pretty well. So that's the history of this. It took us, I think, 14 years or 12 years, something like that, to get the legislation through. It was quite the excited or quite an accomplishment that we were able to do that. But we did figure out that there were things that needed to be changed, and we just haven't been able to get that done yet. Maybe this year.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Yes, we can always be hopeful, because I'm glad you clarified about us supporting other entities' agenda items in our legislative platform. If we don't specifically say it, we're usually supporting it on someone else's as a group. So thank you for that. And I see that County Manager O'Connor, did you want to comment? I see you rose your hand, you had your hand raised and then you didn't, but if you'd like to comment, and then we'll continue with the.
I was going to ask a small question. I'll just pass on it for now. I'll hold it for later because I think that answer kind of answered it a little bit anyway, so I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, Zach, and then we'll let Zach finish his presentation, and then we'll take questions after that.
Thank you, Commissioner. The second point that Commissioner Mattis Castillo raised, I think in our report, we call out a couple of local companies, nonprofits that recycle tech dump and PCs for people. And I think the county's been working with those on tech packs. But the intent would be to work with them to receive the electronics collected by the county and that they collect. And as part of our fee for them, the expectation would be that they provide jobs and job training to county residents within the workforce, and that they work with us to provide no cost or low cost technology hardware to county residents that the residents that can demonstrate a need based on income or unemployment. But in that way, instead of most county programs that export their recyclables to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and so any benefit or associated with that from an employment perspective is down in Wisconsin, we would keep that here. And so while we're investing in recycling that material, we keep the value here. And as that principle, there is some equity and economic benefit. So a focus on residents first is going to cost more. And so from a financial perspective, program costs would increase a lot, 115% with these increased services. But this can be paid for. And as Kathy mentioned in the introduction, we can do this without increasing revenue because there has been, the CEC has been increasing as tipping fees increase. The numbers we projected are at program maturity, which would be grown into. And the budget within solid waste can be adjusted in such a way to cover these costs. As reducing toxicity in the waste stream is a high priority, we see that this would result in a 73% increase in participation as we've measured this, and 183% increase in the volume of household hazardous waste collected. Unit costs come down. So while the overall cost goes up as we increase participation in waste volumes, the cost per pound to manage this stuff goes down by 24%. And in our projections, because of efficiencies, we see labor costs reduced by 15%, even with the growth in the program. There's a detailed financial analysis outlined in the report. It favors the redesign as being more effective and efficient. We see a participation if we've analyzed carrying forward with the status quo for another period of time versus this redesign. And participation levels out at about 30,000 as it has the last 10 years. The system redesign, we see conservatively 52,000 households per year, which gets us above that 20% limit. We see an increase in pounds of household hazardous waste collected, as well as e-waste that would be collected, not just by the county, but by working with partners. And for example, thrift stores and others that could potentially be part of a collection system. The cost per pound goes down. The operating cost, as you can see, goes up. Total cost per participant goes up, but the labor cost per participant and the disposal cost per participant are shown there. Capital cost, there's a capital cost for the two buildings that we're talking about, the Environmental Service Center, and the permanent satellite site. We based our capital estimates on a proposal that Scott and Dakota counties are moving forward with now to build an environmental service center, and looked at their capital costs and adjusted them for sizing. It's around $13 million. There are funds available currently in the solid waste fund that can cover this. So there's no need to bond or no need to increase revenue to pay for that. In the report, we looked at these criteria to compare the two. And in a status quo where we continue with the same service moving forward, the concerns we heard from the community about convenience, accessibility, flexibility, and then by our measures, environmental justice, racial equity, and health equity. And then when we look at the county's emphasis on resilience, and then we look at the different risks, occupational, property, and environmental, this checks those boxes. So we believe at the end, we met the concerns from the community as well as the priorities for the county in this proposed design. This last slide is something similar to what you've seen before, but when we look at the county's goals and priorities, this subjective analysis, there's more X's in the 4 components of the existing or of the proposed redesign than there are in the status quo. The status quo falls short in terms of county priorities. And so in this way, we look at an element of the solid waste, hazardous waste system in the East Metro area that is aligned with where the county's direction is headed from a strategic perspective. And with that, Commissioner McGuire, I'd be happy to answer questions, or we're looking for direction today from the board. Is this a direction in which you'd want to go? And if so, on the facility side, the Department of Public Health would work with property management and initiate a siting process. Of course, we'd be coming back to the board for major decisions. We would work on design with e-waste providers and what that could look like. And some have actually expressed getting started sooner, as soon as next year, possibly. And then we would work on the vendor design in terms of securing services for somebody that could operate. And again, this is a 2-year period over which this could be developed so that in 2023 it would be ready to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Zach. This is so exciting. I can barely stand how great it is, and it would be great to do it earlier. We have lots of comments from the board, so you're going to hear from all of us, I know. So we'll start with Commissioner McDonough and then Commissioner Reinhardt after that, and then others. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Chair McGuire. First, Zach, I want to confirm, because in your rule breaking slide, you showed the existing system in the green. We would no longer contract with Bay West under this proposal, and that would go away, or would you still see that as a part of our system?
Commissioner McDonough, this would replace the contract with Bay West, and we've talked to them. They understand their space limited. They have issues with providing some of the services we're talking about. They would be interested in proposing to be the vendor that operates our facilities. There's 3 other companies that provide the service, and they would be interested in competing for that. So there's potentially a role for them going forward.
Perfect. And then I just want to, I am supportive of this. I think it's time for us to make this investment. Where I have a little concern, because we are making a major investment here to really be responsive to the community, both in capital, operations, services, everything. But I get, and I know you use the word conservatively on your numbers, but you know, even with your estimate at 52,000, we're still far under what Dakota and Washington are currently doing with less investment than what you'll be proposing for us. And I think if we're going to, you know, more than I think, I really feel strongly, we're going to make this kind of investment and really make this a game changer. we need to be bold in what we expect as an impact from this, and we need to set our sights high so that we're achieving that, both on participation, but on what we're collecting and all those things. And I think we can. And, you know, yeah, it's nice to be conservative and come in higher, but I'd rather see us set our numbers bolder and more aggressive with this type of investment. But otherwise, I'm supportive of this move.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just one comment is that I think we can get there with the partnerships. One comment about e-waste is that we found that those counties that collect e-waste have higher participation because people will bring in their old CRT or TV set. At the same time, they'll bring along their paint or their solvents or other things as they clean things out. So it's been a consistent driver. The other point that I think will drive a lot of participation, which we observed up in Toronto and Sudbury, Ontario, once you start picking it up at the home and as you expand your criteria, you see a lot more participation by residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach. Okay, Commissioner Reinhardt and then Commissioner Manis-Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am also very excited about this. It's been a long time coming. But, you know, as with other things, we really try to make sure that we've got all of our homework done and making sure that we get the best outcomes for our constituents. I do think that the goals are probably, it could be much bolder because I believe that it will make a huge difference. Not only the household collection part of this, but also just the convenience of it, because I have, you know, going to the current site, Bay West does a fantastic job, but getting there, getting out of there, I mean, you really have to be committed to go there because it's just not very user-friendly as far as residents first. And so I think just that is going to make a difference, much less the investment that we're making, which will also include an educational component. Toxicity reduction and climate change and all of the things that we are looking at from an environmental perspective are going to be part of what we are really highlighting and focusing on. And I think that people are going to be excited about the information that they are going to be able to get so that they can individually make a difference in the environment. And that's what I have often said about recycling is, and what we're doing in this area. To me, it's exciting because it empowers individuals. And the way this is set up, all individuals, the equity part of this should not be underplayed. It is very important that everyone will have this opportunity. I also really like the fact that we have units being refurbished. There will be more as far as the e-waste. There will be more coming in that can be reused. I also have a computer that is sitting in my home. And the fact of the matter is I haven't taken it to Tech Dump. I have others. But this one is something that can be refurbished. It's I can't with a clear conscience go and take it and have it recycled because it is still usable. And so I'm looking forward to that possibility with this, and it will be much more convenient. People, I think, will be excited, and I think that the numbers, as Commissioner McDonough said, I think that being conservative in this case, we need to be bolder in that, because I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt, especially with e-waste, that we are going to have, we're going to far exceed the goals that have been set here or that have been listed here. So this is one that, you know, is a woohoo in my mind. So there you've got it. And I just am very excited about this moving forward and what it really means. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Reinhardt. I'm going to echo woohoo for sure. So thank you. We've got Commissioner Manis-Castillo, then Carter, Ortega, and then Fretham. We're gonna all contribute. I know you didn't have your hand raised, Commissioner Fretham, but we're just gonna let you comment on what you think. So Commissioner Mattis Castillo, then Carter, then Ortega.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I think woohoo is a good term for today's presentation. And it is nice to have a positive presentation that's not about COVID. So thanks for that too. You know, I think that I'm continuously blown away by the way that and the care and thought that the recycling and energy team puts forth in how we think about things, and to say it's going to cost more to put residents first, which I'm already okay with, but then to figure out a way to fund it without requiring us to go back to the budget is really remarkable. And so I just don't want to, I want to celebrate that in itself and really think, thank you for that work. I also think that I echo Commissioner McDonough and Commissioner Reinhardt's comments about, like, let's be bold and aggressive. But I also want to caution us in that, you know, unlike Washington County and Dakota County, we have a much more diverse community. And many of our ethnic and cultural groups are not familiar with recycling or even how to do this. And so I think that your conservative numbers really take into account the cultural nuances and aspects to this work, because as you know, and your team has done a fantastic job, as I've gotten to witness at the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, with how do we really engage different communities that this is new to them and not familiar to participate. I think we're going to see this, and we're going to have lessons learned as we move to our organics recycling and curbside pickup in the future as well. And so to me, this really is a holistic picture on how we do this work and engage community, and really take that cultural and you know, kind of education piece to the forefront as well. And so I really appreciate it. I'm in full support. One area that I wonder if we're looking at citing a kind of service center for this work, and I know we've talked a little bit before, but there are other items that need to be collected too that often get dumped in alleys or on the side of the road, or people don't know what to do with. And, you know, I'm thinking of carpet, because we know the backing is also considered a hazardous waste. I'm thinking about large bulky furniture and mattresses. And I know you're doing a little bit of work with other partners that do that, but that is one area that I could see as, in addition to, you can drop off your electronics, your old mattress, and your hazardous waste, and to think about how do we truly make a full, you know, one-stop kind of place. And then, of course, the siting is going to be really critical, as well as the pickup. So thanks, Zach.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mattis Castillo. Okay, Commissioner Carter, then Ortega, then Fretham.
Thank you. So much has been said, and I will just hopefully briefly add how excited I am that this work is proceeding, and really how much I admire that staff and commissioners have been thinking toward the use of levers within our control to enhance our ability to meet our goals in the recycling arena, but also our goals in general for Ramsey County. So this is certainly an area where we can invest. Clearly, it costs more for the specific result we're looking for, and that is the enhancement of our residents first goal. But it costs more if we don't focus on residents first, and we all know that. It's a matter of how you add the numbers up. So thank you for the additional work to think through how we do this in an effective, a cost-effective, and efficient manner, using all of the resources, our people, our land, our capital, to focus in on the equity outcomes that we want to see. I'd comment that this foreshadows the work that we're doing overall in economic competitiveness and inclusiveness, recognizing that the both are each other and both required as we move forward toward a community of prosperity. I would also be excited to know how this works hand in hand with a focus on reuse, you know, as we think about the fact that I've got 4 printers in my home right now that I've gone through this year, and certainly that they can be reused, if not by me, by others. And so how we encourage both those platforms together makes sense. to me, and I'm encouraged for the work that's going on here in the recycling of e-waste, and look forward to hearing more also about how we connect to that reuse of e-waste. I endorse this direction fully. I appreciate it. Look forward to the planning effort so that this turns into a reality. I only regret that I won't be on the Recycling and Energy Board this year to hear the partnership work that will proceed. Commissioner Fretham will be working with that board this year. I thank you so much for the work that's going on in Ramsey County, for the partnership that we have with Washington County, and for the full array of work. That's all I wanted to say. No question. Big thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Ortega. And unmute, Commissioner Ortega, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say to SAC and the staff, I think you've done a fantastic job. Not just because it's within the budget, but because it's the direction we need to go into. And I could see that it's really eventually going to be the main structure of work. The two words that come to my mind as we ramp this up is access and outreach. And a couple of words that sort of put red flags is when you said people would have to call to make appointments. That right away told, that's the low-hanging fruit, right? We need to go past that, I think, in the initial steps. We need to do outreach. We need to knock on people's doors and make sure that we could sign them up. I mean, that's like a missing component here. It depends on the individual being sophisticated enough to put all these pieces together. And we got to go beyond that. But other than that, I think it's a great plan, and I think we should move forward, and we could always calibrate. It's not going to be perfect, but I think it's definitely in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. Commissioner Fretham, and welcome to the Recycling and Energy Board. We're excited to have you.
I'm excited to be on the board. Thank you, Chair McGuire. I think this workshop really demonstrates my perception / understanding of Ramsey County really as an innovator in the waste and energy area. And I think sometimes the trap of being innovative is that we forget we have to keep doing it. So this recognize that the landscape has changed and that e-waste is a huge issue. As someone who was just 2 weeks ago trying to figure out what do I do with this old coffee maker, and which is still just sitting underneath my piano next to the recycling bin because I haven't quite figured out what to do with it. I appreciate that. I think that's great. This direction to make that easier, because we all want to do the right thing, but we don't want to be, sitting with piles of old batteries and old, LED light bulbs just in random bags about our garages and basements. So making that easier and more efficient for everyone means that we can participate in ways, and that folks who
Did we just lose everyone except for like Zach and Kathy?
I think so.
Well,
Yeah, that's weird. I thought it was me. Is Sia on?
hello?
oh,
Hello.
hey.
Okay, now we're back.
There we are.
Okay, we're back. I think we were all temporarily frozen for a second
Yeah, we
there.
found a way to freeze all board members, but all 3 staff members could talk to each other, which is one of the weird things that's happened today.
Fascinating. Well, I don't know where I was, but I think this, it's very clear how it aligns with putting residents first, recognizing the barriers that exist, and setting us up for success with the changing waste landscape, and ensuring that we are making good decisions for our environment and health moving forward. So this looks good to me and makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. And I will just end the board comments with mine, and just to say to everyone watching that this is something our entire board cares about, as you know, and just thank Commissioner Reinhardt for her great leadership on the Recycling and Energy Board. It was just my turn to lead a workshop, so I was lucky to be able to guide this, but this is work that we all care about. So it's just my luck that I got to be here, but we all think this is really important work. And thank you, Zach, and your team for putting this all together. I couldn't be more excited about it. I just want to highlight what my colleagues have said. I want to focus on our reduce, reuse, and recycle. I mean, that stays there. I want to be bold, but keeping in mind, of course, the efforts that we want to make with our diverse communities. I love that we're working with multiple complexes. We have so many apartment buildings, condos, where we can maybe be partners with them in having central depositories there. We have lots of partners. I'm on a number of community groups with the League of Women Voters. Our Rotary has a recycling and energy community response team now. So we are, I think so many of our community partners are interested in this. So I continue to work with all of them. They can help with our outreach, help with getting this to happen. And just grateful for the work moving forward. And whatever we can do to, make it happen faster in light of all the challenges that we have, I think we all, it sounds like we all stand by that, and just in such gratitude for this workshop today and for moving forward. So I'll let you make any final remarks. I don't see anything else from my colleagues, but I'll let you and Deputy County Manager Hadeen wrap us up then. Zach.
I'll just thank you, commissioners. The feedback was good. We'll organize and go full speed ahead as much as we can walking into a pandemic. I do want to, several of you mentioned the team, and I want to recognize the folks. It's important, the people that do the heavy lifting on this. John Springman is the supervisor of our operations group, and Pete Miller, and he worked very closely with Bay West and in our household hazardous waste system. Pete is on the State Product Stewardship Council, has been doing a lot of work for us. And so they did a lot of heavy work on this. Ray Frank supervises our programs, Mary Elizabeth Outreach, and then Minette Solog was one of our fellows that did a lot of work, environmental health fellows. So I want to extend my thanks to them and get them the recognition they deserve for their hard work on this. Kathy.
Yes, and I extend that gratitude as well to Ray, John, Pete, Mary Elizabeth, and Minette, and Jean Yeager, who helped us get to the finish line of this workshop. Huge gratitude to all of you, the board, for your support, and the support of our CFO, Alex, who we've brought up to speed, hopefully, a few times through this process to make sure she has a good understanding of the Solid Waste Fund and how this gets funded. And gratitude to County Manager O'Connor as well. If Zach and I were in the same room, this is where he would kick me under the table, because I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that our Environmental Health Director, Zach Hansen, will be retiring this spring, which is amazing for him. As you spoke about, Commissioner Fretham, this work has been innovative, and a big, big, big contribution to that innovation is Zach Hansen. And so he will be missed, and I know the team agrees with me, as well as our partners at Washington County and the R&E Center. And so gratitude for you and your work over the years, Zach. And if we're lucky, maybe we could schedule like 2 more workshops so you could be a part of those.
I love that idea. Zach, well, we'll have lots more times to compliment you, Zach, on all of your work. So I appreciate you bringing that up, though, Director Hadeen. I forgot to say that we didn't circle back to you, County Manager O'Connor. Did you have anything else you wanted to say? I know you said
Just
we could come back
just
to
two
you.
additions. One, I think what Zach would probably say is you gave him a good early retirement gift today by saying, yes, let's move ahead on something he's been working so hard on for a long time with so many people. And I appreciate that as well. The only other thing is, as we looked at this, and this is an ongoing conversation that Kathy and I have been having around service delivery, service centers, building integration. There are reasons that were talked about today around hazardous materials probably not being great and integrating with some of other sites. However, there are other products that are pretty easy to think about making available for ease drop off at moments when you're already coming to the county as a one point. And so we're talking about that up front, and that's an ongoing piece to our dialogue, but we're not going to have that be an afterthought. And I just wanted to make sure we talk about that because it shows how we're integrating both across like that department and then with the broader work happening across the organization.
Thank you so much. And just to acknowledge, I think that's Alex Kutza in the room with you. Is that Alex there waving? Okay, thank you for being there, our CFO of our county. So thank you, Alex. And I just want to say a final thanks to Zia Zhang, who is our administrator of this webinar. So thank you for doing that. And we'll just keep moving forward with these workshops on webinar format. But I see no other comments, but just to say thanks to all of you for this important work. And we look forward to continuing moving forward together. So thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye now.
Okay.